Welcome, dear listeners, to episode 2. Today we are exploring the topic Curiosity Unleashed, the power of asking why. Again, we are Amy and David, the founders of the Holistic Academy 2025, a new movement in education that reimagines how we understand wellness, science, and human potential. Our teachings are rooted in health, psychology, and philosophy, weaving together ancient wisdom with modern science. With this shared purpose, we've come together to guide a new generation towards a deeper, more connected way of living and learning.
At the heart of our academy, there are five pillars of health that we will be mentioning throughout our interactions, and the framework that honors body, mind, spirit, community, finance, and the environment that is interconnected parts of human flourishing. So we are just not separated. We are a really holistic, integral. That's why the name has this word. Through our programs, we'll take you on a historical and evolutionary journey exploring how ideas of health and well-being have evolved over 2,500 years and how these lessons can help you create a vibrant and meaningful life today.
Thanks, David. Well, today, as I mentioned, we are going to be talking about Curiosity Unleashed, the power of asking why. And we'll be ending with 5 empowering wellness tips and how we can integrate curiosity into our daily lives. So, welcome again, dear listeners, to our second enlightening episode of the Holistic Academy 2025, where we will bridge ancient wisdom, as we said, with modern wellness. So let's imagine for a moment, just sitting back, what if the greatest discoveries in history had never happened? Because no one dared to ask why. There'd be no electricity, no aeroplanes, no internet, no medical breakthroughs. Perhaps just silence. Quite a boring world to live in, wouldn't it? That tiny word why has shaped civilians, and I for sure has shaped me during my life. So here's a question for you. When was the last time you asked why about something in your own life? Why am I doing this job? Why do I believe what I believe? Or why am I stuck here? And how can I move forward? I should probably be asking myself these questions more and more each day, but they are important. And David, have there been any similar important questions of why that you have asked in your life?
Yes, actually, several times during my life, I have asked that kind of questions and those uncomfortable questions that make us pivot sometimes from what we are doing or reflecting if the direction that we are taking is the one that satisfies us or we are just fulfilling the expectations of other people. So one moment that I can remember very clearly is when I was doing my PhD. I asked the question, am I supposed to be doing this after all these years, after all the studies that I already did? And the answer was, together with life circumstances, was no. I was not supposed to be doing that anymore. So that's why I just stayed there 2 years and actually pivot from there and look for something that really spark my curiosity, which is why we are sharing this journey with you today.
Thanks, David. I can definitely relate. I asked myself once, why am I doing this? And what would I like to wake up for? And what would make my heart sing? And that definitely made me pivot as well into a new pathway in life. So, as we can see, that simple act and question, why, can spark both insight, fuel sometimes innovation to change, and as we've shared, unlock new perspectives in life and work. So for me, asking questions and having curiosity is so important, as it's the difference for us to stay where we are, and also the potential of where we can go to discover something completely new. So it's definitely encompassing the world of exploration and finding out who we are and what we like about this world, where we belong, where we've come from. So there's so many important, amazing questions to ask ourselves with curiosity. Not only that, curiosity has been the major driving force, of course, behind every discovery, and it's expanded our understanding on so many different fields of research, including our understanding of the universe, and it's helped to improve the quality of our own lives. So without it, we would have never uncovered gravity, electricity, medicine, or space exploration. So, listeners, let's look back into the past. What was curiosity like for people living 2,500 years ago in history? Well, in ancient history, the Greeks were absolutely obsessed with curiosity. Socrates built his entire philosophy on asking questions. He saw it as the bedrock of wisdom, saying, "Wonder is the beginning of wisdom, and an unexamined life is not worth living." So his method was all about questioning. My own visions for education and how children can move forward with having critical thinking and deeper reasoning skills. I really believe part of it is to use the Socratic method and ask, why do we think that? And why do we experiment and come up with theories like that? And why is that one the best theory? And having these questions constantly are going to help children grow up into having a really well-rounded education, to be able to think for themselves, but also to know who they are and not to be afraid to ask why and find that answer out. So I think Socrates probably got on people's minds, because it does get a bit annoying when people ask, why? But of course, the way he thought and curiosity has changed the way that we think today forever. Aristotle too, he also called curiosity the beginning of wisdom and agreed. What he meant, though, is that every journey towards knowledge starts with a question. So wisdom isn't just about having answers, but it's about daring to ask why things are the way they are, and then going on an explorative inquiry and testing that. For Aristotle, unlike school today, curiosity wasn't just a distraction, it was the foundation of science, philosophy and learning. And then Alexandria, this famous library, well, this is where curiosity has given us some of the early advances in medicine, astronomy, and maths. And this library is one of the greatest centers of knowledge in the ancient world, built on the idea that no question was too small and too strange. However, it's sad news, because I don't think they allowed the public to actually visit the Library of Alexandria and have access to these books. So it's really a shame, but human knowledge was built on that from the ancient times. So, you know, what sort of advances in medicine, health and wellness were they thinking of in that time? And did they have a much more holistic version of humanity and living in the world or not? But anyway, we do have some insights into what was going on back there. Thinkers were there, and scientists studying the stars, which is something that we don't do as much today. They did again dissect bodies. We do that, and they love understanding anatomy. And they were also keen on developing and creating their own principles in maths that guide us today, whereas we usually just consume the principles and have to learn what the teacher says. But back then, curiosity allowed us to discover what the language of maths was in the world and what it represented. Moving a little bit further on, Marcus Tullius Cicero, he was one of the most influential thinkers, writers, and statesmen in ancient Rome. He's remembered as one of the greatest public speakers in history, and Cicero, described curiosity as a natural inclination to acquire knowledge for its own sake, but also as an uncontrollable impulse. So it's innate in us, you know, we love to be just curious from the moment we're born.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with many of the passages that you shared, and how this ancient wisdom and ancient characters of history have impulsed us and have inspired us to look for something to spark our soul, let's say, to use that word, because once you lose that drive, that motivation to ask questions, to really see the meaning of curiosity, and not just tolerate the word curiosity, not just tolerate the world as it is and asking why we do these things, that is what is going to drive us in a different direction, and to force and to be a force of knowledge.
Exactly. I think curiosity unlocks many more pathways and doors and limitless possibilities than the way that we learn with people already telling us the answer today. But it is really exciting that thousands of years later, we're still using a lot of our curious nature in our lives. However, there are times in history where curiosity wasn't as much celebrated. So we can't forget to mention the early Christian era between the 4th and 17th century. So in history, there are time periods, if you didn't know, where people thought a lot different, and the way that they were oppressed and the way that they learnt knowledge was very different from today. So in that time, it was a much darker period for curiosity. Some early and Christian and medieval thinkers like Augustine and Aquinas, they constantly branded curiosity as dangerous and sinful and vain, associating it with pride and linking it directly to Adam and Eve's original sin from eating from the tree of knowledge. So curiosity was condemned, so it wasn't advised. And I think that's such a shame, as we understand today that curiosity is a spark and it allows us to find new ideas and invent new solutions and get in touch with ourselves and make better relationships and understand the world better and find different scientific discoveries. May I go on?
Yeah. And well, those are really, really interesting facts about the history of curiosity. And well, we can just look at curiosity today. And if curiosity would be, and it is so natural and innate in us, why do so many of us lose it as we get older? Because the instruction system, the education system is always trying to uh, underestimate the power of curiosity, and also to, just like this period that Amy was mentioning in the Christian medieval thinkers, they are just trying to repress your spark of feeling that curiosity and asking why, because people don't tolerate too much when you ask why, because many times asking that question will make you think further, and will make you think deeper, and will make you think in the root cause of the things. So I don't know if you remember once in your lifetime how you were thinking like these two personage of history in the picture. How many times have you sit in a bench just to think, without the phone, without uh, AirPods or headphones or whatever you use, and just listen to nature, and let your mind wander, and let your mind give you a direction where you can think of deeper questions? All of those things just happen when we allow that process, and we will review these kind of brain processes that happen. So how does this apply in schools? What can we do different in our school systems? Maybe you are better with this one, Amy, but I have noticed that the more we allow children to answer questions, to ask better questions for them, and to ask for their own opinion, they come up with very, very creative, imaginative, and develop answers.
I couldn't agree more. I definitely think schools sometimes kill kill create curiosity and of course creativity as well.
Yeah.
A way to overcome it, as you said, is definitely to ask a lot of questions and have the children learn the Socratic method or learn how to philosophize. There's a program across schools in the United Kingdom called Philosophy for Children. So they get the children to learn how to have critical thinking, creative thinking, caring thinking, and create and understand each other and their differences and see that we all have a different mind, but it all thinks differently and it all sometimes might have a different answer. But that can also be valid and it opens their minds to also follow their own curiosities and ask people questions. But for modern schools and even myself, I definitely think my curiosity was dumbed down. I know that as natural babies, when we're born, we test how everything feels, looks, smells, and of course, we love testing how it tastes. But for all of us, curiosity is important, and since the beginning of time, it's the foundation of us learning about the world, as we said, the foundation of creativity and human progress. Schools might kill curiosity in several ways just by asking just by asking them to memorize facts and not to question the content. And you're sitting in classrooms with not a very dynamic, exciting environment. So for that, you're not inspired to ask new things or how that works or why that has changed colour. You're not even there noticing the seasons, whereas if you were learning outside, you would, and there would be more to talk about. So it is important that we try and reclaim that ability where we were younger and really annoying, but we loved asking those endless questions and having that pure, innocent wonder about the world. And we got to walk around it being in absolute awe of its beauty and with so much to do, play and explore. So I think asking why is really important. And for me, I've asked why the schooling system is designed the way it is. Why doesn't it want curious individuals? Why doesn't it want us to think deeper beyond what we're taught? And why don't we question what the purpose is of ourselves and these institutions? I think it's also important to question why are we rewarding this obedience to authority and rewarding people who can do exams well with grades and not someone who can be kind or be good at sharing or be good at listening or be good with the environment. So it is important to question things and ask why. And we know that the better students are ones who are still curious and they aren't necessarily the ones who always get the best grade because being curious shows that there's not always one right answer. So you're probably much more in touch with real life if you're a curious thinker and you keep asking why. But I am curious about the science of curiosity and what that shows. So David, could you touch on that a little bit?
Of course, yes. And this is one of the best segments of our episode because we are going to talk about how this science now is working to help us. So it is just a shame that science backs up the importance of natural curiosity. Animals do show curiosity and often expressed through exploration, through play and problem solving, because they need to survive and they look for that. Young animals like kittens, puppies, and primates investigate their environment not just for this survival instinct, but out of interest in the new and unknown. And scientific studies reveal that the creatures, such as dolphins, which is one of my favorite animals, by the way, crows, and chimpanzees experiment with tools and tasks suggesting curiosity driven behavior. So, play seen in otters, elephants, and dogs also demonstrates curiosity since it often serves no immediate survival purpose but helps learning, and social bonding. Unlike humans, animal curiosity is usually tied to practical needs and doesn't extend to abstract questions or symbolic thought. Still, curiosity in animals is real and is vital, showing that the drive to explore and learn is a shared trait across species. It's not only about humans, it's innate even in plants that have this curious sensing experience of looking for the sun, uh, turning to the wind, and also feeling that kind of nurturing drive to absorb water. So we can find it everywhere, curiosity.
I love what you mentioned there about plants. I was already thinking about how do we relate curiosity to animals and how that is in difference with us as humans. But I think you answered it well. I don't think necessarily monkeys, otters, or giraffes are going to be wondering why they were born on that day and where we're going to be going after we die. But I definitely think that humans have a higher level of curiosity than they do, but we still share that. Ooh, what's the favorite food? I'm sure that's a similar trait as most animals as well. But I love what you shared. I'm also quite curious about our own brain science, though, and how our brains operate with curiosity. So, do you know what might happen in the field of neuroscience and what parts of our brains are activated when we are curious?
Yes, of course. Actually, this is the image that now I'm showing. So curiosity starts with a mechanism or a pathway that can start from the frontal cortex, activating several neurons there and going forward into the ventral tegmental area, which is one area that is going to start releasing the dopamine system, and it's going to start allowing ourselves to feel this kind of impulse to know more that will light up the reward system. This is the substance that is going to ignite or trigger these reward systems. And this same system is triggered by food or pleasure. And we have feel that when we consume a lot of sugary products or a lot of processed food, this dopamine system is also activated. We also experience that when we scroll too much time in any kind of social network. We also experience that when we are constantly being lured by any kind of instantaneous way of receiving information. And those are the ways that this dopamine is released. But those kind of ways are not healthy for ourselves because the threshold of dopamine goes really, really high, and then anything will satisfy your dopamine drive. That's the dangerous, let's say, the dangerous extreme of driving too much into those systems. When you feel curious, instead, specific brain regions, as I showed, like the caudate also nucleus and inferior frontal gyrus, become active. So these two systems, or these two regions of the brain, this isn't just random activity. It indicates an anticipation of the rewarding nature of acquiring new information. This is a feeling that you experience when someone tells you that he or she has a secret for you and they don't tell you what it is, but you are constantly thinking, oh, what can it be, and what would be the surprise, or what will I learn. So that rupture in the way we share sometimes information and that leave us curious about the things that we want, that is what is going to start the release of dopamine. So our brains release that dopamine, the motivation molecule, and that means we don't just learn faster. We actually enjoy learning. That's the biggest breakthrough that we have done. That once we experience this release of dopamine, we remember more because our brains are excited, are motivated. Biologists and psychologists dating back to the 1950s recognized that humans and even higher animals possess this innate drive for learning. It was it's what Pavlovsky called the need for knowledge, or NFK. This need for knowledge is a primary essential drive for perception, for cognition, which is learning, and even satisfying instinctual needs.
Wow, I really like that. That's
Mhm.
exactly similar to what I shared about how it's a very pleasurable and satisfying thing to do when you're a kid, learning about the world and trying and testing everything. But it also now makes sense to me why curiosity is, well, why you get so hooked on it, because it has this feedback loop to the reward system, and it makes it obvious why it's so important for children to be learning with curious minds and learning topics that are about their own interests and curiosities, because it will keep them wanting to come back for more. And as you said, it will help them retain the information for longer, improving their memory. So curiosity is powerful.
Yeah, curiosity even helps us to handle stress. Instead of fearing the unknown, our brain flips the script and we start to see the unknown as something exciting, something worth exploring. And that's how, or that's why, many times we also can become bored with a repetitive or monotonous way of living. So curiosity doesn't just make us smarter, it makes us healthier, more resilient, more alive. And we will touch on more of that after this.
Oh, thanks, David. I'm really it's really alive in me, all the things that you're sharing about curiosity, and I definitely need to integrate it more into my daily life. But I'm still, pondering on the fact that we've lost a lot of our curious nature, and in general, we don't necessarily see kids or adults sitting at a park now and thinking like, how could I invent something or make that tree grow longer or taller or stronger, and how could I build that thing? We're actually being sucked into this technological revolution where we're using so many hours of our day on phones and screens, even when we're outside. So I have a fear that technology dulls our curiosity.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Well, don't get wrong this concept. Tech is incredible and can help us a lot. We can look up anything in seconds. But you are right, Amy. That instant access and that instantaneous compulsion to also get information or to be distracted can rob us of the process of wondering, of the process of exploring, of the process of figuring things out, because we just rely on technology, rely now on AI platforms, which is something that we are going to speak in the next episode, by the way. So, too much screen time, endless scrolling, constant notifications, all of that noise keeps your mind, they keep your brain busy, but not curious. Instead of asking why, we are trained to swipe, to consume, to move on, to be very desperate, impulsive, and curiosity requires space, requires reflection, and sometimes even to be bored. So it's not bad to be bored. Things that our screens don't often give us. So the more we feel that we are bored, the more your mind will start to find ways to find solutions to find questions, bigger questions to your own direction, to your own purpose. And that's what is going to lead you to feel more motivated.
That's so true, David. Even myself, I can relate to that. And I'm in need of a digital detox for sure, and to go out in the world and explore with curiosity. So it is true that nowadays in modern culture, we're living in a world with more information than we could ever imagine, with more information that we can even consume. But having answers directly from the internet isn't always enough anymore. We're moving to a time where the real skill is changing, and we need to be learning how to ask the right questions. And this is especially true for artificial intelligence and using models such as ChatGPT, which is an incredible discussion. And as you mentioned, we'll be talking more about this next time.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. So, to summarize and to wrap up this, curiosity can help in several ways. And I have observed in my own life that businesses innovate when leaders ask, why not? When we go in the, let's say, in the wrong direction, because many people think that it's the wrong direction, but that's what Steve Jobs did, actually. He always went against the model, against the things. That's why he made a breakthrough in the devices that he created. So relationships, for example, can grow when we ask, why do you feel that way? When you have time to reflect, when you have time with your couple to discuss things that you don't like or discuss things that you would like to do. And personal growth only happens when we dare to ask ourselves, why am I here? And what is next? When we stop growing, we start dying, as the phrase says. So curiosity is the engine behind progress in technology, art, science, even nature, as we mentioned, even nature, because animals, plants have curiosity and they don't have scrolling systems to distract them. That is something that they lack of. And in our own personal lives, curiosity is also driving our way.
Oh, absolutely. Super. Thanks for sharing that, David. So, as promised, let's end with 5 wellness tips and how we can apply curiosity to our daily lives to live a healthy, happy, and holistic life. So, number 1, we could all start with a morning ritual, a morning why ritual. We could start with one question of why am I grateful today? And that can set our focus in the right place. If we're feeling a little bit more explorative, then we could also pick a topic in our own lives and ask the 5 whys. Why are we feeling that way? Why is it like that? And why? So, number 2 is a curiosity walk. Next time you're outside, look for 5 things you've never noticed before. It could be as small as the way the light hits a building, or the color of a flower, or just how the nature is changing, as we said. It's important to be curious about the world around us, including animals and plants. Number 3 wellness tip is to flip the script. So, if you're feeling like you're blocked in life, or you have a challenge, or things aren't going well for you, or you feel stuck, we often start saying, why me? Why did it happen to me? But maybe if something good is happening, why not me? Maybe change it, flip the script. And suddenly the problem becomes a totally different opportunity and perspective. Number 4 wellness tip with curiosity is in your conversations, you can listen differently. Instead of jumping in with advice, which a lot of people do, sometimes you just want comfort as well rather than advice, but you could try a deeper question. Why do you think that? Or why does this matter to you? And that can, in fact, transform the connection. As we said, curiosity is great at building deeper relationships.
Yeah.
Number five, I think I'm going to do this one, is a curiosity journal. So at night, jot down one why question that stood out in your day, one thing that left you wondering, I'm curious why that is like that, or why that looks like that, or why that happens like that, or what if this would happen. And you don't even need to answer it. You could just keep it as a playful exercise to open your mind and explore more.
Hmm. Thank you, Amy. So here is a great takeaway. Curiosity isn't just about thinking, knowing more. It's about living more fully. And curiosity, grab this in your mind and put it in a paper if you want. It's about living more fully. The more you allow yourself to be bored, the more you allow yourself to be in quiet and without devices, the easier your brain will start to trigger this mechanism and be a more creative human being. So when we dare to ask why, we unlock insight, we feel innovation, and we open ourselves to new ways of seeing the world. As Amy was mentioning, in the work that we can do every day, we can discover new things, even though you have been passing in that same direction every day. You can discover new things that you don't even pay attention. So I leave you, dear listeners, with one final question. What could change in your life if you choose to live with curiosity every single day? So that's just the question that I want to give you for this episode.
Indeed, and that one small why can really change everything.
Mhm.
Thank you, David, and thank you everyone for being here today. You're welcome to pop any questions or highlights or your own curiosities and questions in the chat below, and we'll be sure to answer them. I'd love to share a little bit about next week, even though we've touched on it. It's going to be all about creativity and self expression in the age of AI. So, looking at technology and creativity and whether it's enhancing our creativity or hindering our creativity.
Yeah.
It's true in this modern world that AI is changing the way that we create, share, and express ourselves. And what does that mean today for human imagination? Is technology enhancing our creativity or indeed replacing it? I think it's going to be a really, really juicy discussion. So I hope to see you all there. Please join us as we'll dive deep into the future of art, ideas, and expression. And potentially you'll find out how you can stay authentically creative in a world full of machines.
Thank you, Amy. And I think that's a very great invitation for people so that they can start thinking about how using or overusing technology is changing their brain and changing the way they are thinking, because many times we don't even notice that we are struggling to think about problems, to think about solutions, because we are relying or over relying on these platforms. So we will dive deeper. We will go into the science of what happens to our brain when we overuse these systems. So stay tuned, ask questions, of course, and give us likes, share our episodes, and interact with us in our platform in Substack. Please. Thank you very much for connecting with us, and we will listen to each other next time.
Thank you. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.